to go to any F4 flying unit in the world, and I could have been an instructor with the time I had in the A1 and the F4, and I'd been a T-38 instructor. And TAC wouldn't do that, and I got mad and was going to get out of the Air Force, and General Brent Scowcroft, retired Air Force Lieutenant General, was President Ford's national security advisor in the White House, and he had known me from 2 years before. Between my two tours, I had been served in the White House Fellows Program, which is a 1 year, like an internship in the White House, and I'd worked with General Scowcroft. Well, he brought me back to the National Security Council staff. So I was an Air Force officer on the NSC staff, and I like to tell people I had the same job on the NSC staff that Oliver North did, except I did it according to the Constitution and the laws of the United States, unlike Lieutenant Colonel North. But I did that until President Carter was elected, and when that happened, his budget director, Burt Lance, offered me the job to be the Associate Director for National Security, which was the defense budget, the intelligence budget, and the foreign affairs budget, so that was 1/3 of the whole federal budget. I was responsible for analyzing those budgets, reporting to the president, and then implementing whatever the president said to do on adjusting whatever the departments asked for. So I resigned my commission in early 1977, joined the Air National Guard, and went out to Andrews. So while I was working in the White House for President Carter as a civilian, I was flying the F-105 Thunder Chief for 3.5 years in the District of Columbia Air National Guard. And so I left that summer before, I left the summer of the election of '80 before Carter lost the election, but I left, went to work for General Dynamics in St. Louis, and joined the Missouri Air Guard, flying again the F-4 that I'd flown a Vietnam tour in. And then after almost 8 years at GD, went to McDonnell Douglas across town in St. Louis, ended up running the F-15 program, and helped bring the F-15 into the Missouri Air Guard in 1988, 1989. And so I got to fly the Eagle that I was also building in my day job, fly it in the Guard from '89 through '95, when I stopped flying because we moved back to Washington and I couldn't keep doing that. And General Don Shepard, who was the Air Guard commander, made me the first ever Air National Guard assistant to Air Force Space Command. Now, the neat thing about that is when I talked to General Shepard about retiring as a colonel, he said, "No, I want you to take that job." And I said, "Well, you don't have an Air National Guard assistant to Space Command." He said, "No, but if you'll," because I've been working space programs at both McDonnell Douglas and GD. He said, "If you'll take the job, you'll have it." And I said, "Well, that's a 2-star general job." And he said, "Yes, that's right." I said, "Okay, forget what I said about retiring." So I literally went in to retire and walked out on the general officers list. And so I did that for 5 more years, no more flying. I flew my last F-15 flight in December of '95. And I retired from the Guard in December of 2000, 5 years later. And the neat thing I was able to accomplish, Rich, and it's the reason that General Shepard sent me out there, was Space Command had 12,000 officers and enlisted people. They had no Air National Guard presence. We converted 3 major Space Command mission areas to Air National Guard missions, and when I left, we had 3,200 guardsmen in Space Command out of that 12,000. So I had a business development job, if you want to think about it that way, and it was very successful because the Guard guys in Colorado and Wyoming and California and Florida did a remarkable job and had more technical expertise to bring to Space Command than the much younger rookie active duty people that had been doing these jobs. And so all these units' readiness and performance went up because of the technical capability in the Guard family of people that worked for, Raytheon and Northrop and Honeywell as their day job and were guardsmen on the weekend.
So it allowed a greater pool of working knowledge to be utilized
Yeah.
in the theoretical field of some of those places. You brought a lot of experience
Yes,
into those organizations.
yeah, and what I was able to do, it really was a sales and marketing job, because there were a lot of, I used to say that people think fighter pilots are arrogant because they're very capable of doing something really hard and really challenging, and they know it. They're nowhere near as arrogant as the leadership of the Air Force Space Command world, because those people are rocket scientists, really, and they know it. And the Space Command attitude when I got there was, the guard's a bunch of dumb weekend warriors. They couldn't possibly do this. Well, the unit I flew with in St. Louis, I had McDonnell Douglas test pilots in the unit. I said, these aren't normal people. We're pretty picky in the Guard.
There's some exceptional people.
Yeah, so the three major missions that we had were 2 wartime mobile backup satellite control missions, where these people would drive their trucks out into the desert or forest, and they could control the satellites if the ground station that was a fixed station got blown up or got taken off the air. And so it wasn't something that had to be done every day. So it was perfect for the Guard. Yeah. And then the other one was launching the Air Force's missiles from the east and west coast, and the Guard launch teams were on each coast one of 3 teams, and so they only had to do every 3rd launch. So again, it was perfect mission for the Guard, where you could tell somebody, okay, in 2 months, you need to be able to take 2 months or 2 weeks of military leave to come do this launch. And so it was perfect for the Guard.
So you built redundancy systems.
Yes.
From what they had. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and for example, both of these mobile satellite command things were, if you think about it, if you have a part break on an F-15 or an F-4, there's thousands of those parts around, and they're produced because they're in all those airplanes, and all those crew chiefs know how to fix that, and all the avionics shops, Well, this remote satellite control stuff was all unique, one-of-a-kind stuff. And we had pieces of equipment that the Air Force would keep working 15% of the time. And our guardsmen in Colorado and Wyoming in these 2 units had them working 95% of the time. And half of the way they did it was, if you looked at the circuit card that they repaired, the 3 components that they'd replaced, they got it from Radio Shack. In other words, they knew that the military supply system did not support that, but they also knew what they needed, and they knew how to go to the electronics market and ask, and Radio Shack said, oh, we'll get you one of those, And so it was that kind of Guard inventiveness and ingenuity that was very good.
That's amazing. I